Welcome to the very first episode of Trauma Rockstars. My name is Tracy, and I am so glad that you are here with me. I'm here to just talk about this space that I want to create. I've been through quite a bit of trauma in my life, and I feel a calling to create this community because I do not find that there's a community out there that we can all get together and support each other and help each other heal. So that's mainly why I really wanted to create this. But let me be a little bit honest about myself and what trauma and healing and the strength it takes to keep on going. If any of you feel that way, this is the place for you. The truth healing, the messy in between, it all can be beautiful, it all can be scary. The process of surviving alone and becoming whole again is kind of the reason why I wanted to create this through things that I have learned. And I'm so honored you're here with me. Thank you so, so much. And this is a safe place. A little bit about me. My name is Tracy. I've walked through a long, long, difficult journey through trauma, many, many years. I'm a survivor and advocate first, but I started this podcast because for so many years I felt so alone. I felt like there was nobody out there who understood me, and it's very isolating. I've learned that trauma isn't linear. It's not a space that you have to suffer in silence alone, that we can do it together. And I'm walking around carrying this pain on me that nobody sees. So this is a space to be heard and seen. I want you to know that healing is possible. We can share our experiences, even the painful ones, but we can do it together. And that's very, very, very powerful. Whether you're just beginning in your trauma journey or you're deep into the work of it, or maybe you're supporting someone you love that's going through it, I want this to be a space for you. You belong here, and I'm so glad that you're joining me. I'm someone who didn't realize how my trauma had been affecting me for years. When I was young, we grew up on the East Coast, and my family moved to Las Vegas, Nevada. It was very exciting for my whole family to move. I can't believe they picked us all up and moved my brother and I there, but they did for my dad's work. And I was very, very close with one of my cousins who also lived on the East Coast. So about a month after we moved, he came out to visit. And it was so exciting because he was like a big brother to me. I have a little brother, but he was kind of like a big brother to me. And we were so close, and he came out to visit. Well, when he was out for the visit, we had another cousin living there that we went with her. She was quite a bit older than us. She was in her late 20s, 30 even, I think. We had our older cousin that we went to run errands with her. And in the morning when we were running errands, her car stalled in the middle of the highway. And because we're in the middle of the highway, she's got two kids with her. She obviously didn't want us getting out of the car. Before we knew it, we were hit on from behind by a tractor trailer at full speed. Both my cousins did not make it, so I was the only survivor. And I was burned on 70% of my body. I had a major head injury that took me years and years and years to learn how to read, write, talk. I had a horrible speech impediment. My memory, I had aphasia. My memory was so bad. Like, I didn't even know my own name. So it was very hard for them to find my parents after the accident happened, to let them know where I was. And believe it or not, my mother actually got a phone call from the morgue. That's how she found out. And they hadn't known if I had even survived at that point. And to go through something like that, can I just tell you, the weight of the survivor's guilt of it all has been horrible, because my life isn't any more important than my cousins' lives who passed away. They didn't deserve that to happen to them. I mean, accidents happen, but there's been so many years that I've just been suffering, not just physically. Like, for years I just went through so many surgeries and recovery and therapy and learning how to read and write all over again. Walking, I really couldn't even walk. It was awful. And I didn't really have time to think about anything else but healing. And I do want to say that part of my healing journey was through Shriners Hospitals. Shriners Hospitals is unbelievable. I would go either to Boston or their LA location. Sometimes I would go for 6 weeks at a time, having surgeries, going through my treatment. And that was very traumatic. You know, I missed a lot of school. I struggled in school. I still to this day, I struggle in school. I've never been a really good student. My memory with reading things, it's taken me years to get over that. But the years of the pain of going through all the surgeries and everything that happened, it was brutal. And quite honestly, like, you didn't even have time to think. And back then, they didn't have the tools they have now, and the resources that are available. So I didn't really know, except for the doctors and nurses who were physically helping me. There was nobody else that knew how to help me. No therapists. There was nobody I could talk to. There was nobody that understood, or that I felt would understand. So it was a very, very long journey. Um, After all the surgeries and everything, about 3 years later, I was in high school, and I went to a high school party with my friends. And as any high school party, you don't know who's all going to be there, but there's still a ton of people that you do know. Well, at that party, I was drugged and assaulted. I don't remember a lot of it because I was drugged and assaulted, but I do know something happened, because it was like I was fading in and out, and I know there were a couple boys involved. Um, I never told a soul about this until very recently. I've been carrying that with me for a very, very long time. A lot of that is because I think after my accident, I really never felt like there was anybody available out there that could help me through that. So I certainly didn't think there was anybody that I wanted to bring on to help me through the assault. So that's been something that obviously everybody knew about my accident. It was all over the news. I mean, my whole family knew. My family was torn apart by the accident and by my cousins dying. They were absolutely torn apart because of it. But the assault is something that I have never, ever told a soul. And that's not healthy. I'm coming to terms now with why I didn't tell anybody, but a lot of it just was because I didn't feel like I was scared. I was scared, I was ashamed, and I just suppressed it and thought if I ignore it, it'll just go away. So Trauma Rockstars is a way for us all to break the silence, to feel less alone. I think that's so important because I felt that for years. I know that feeling. And this isn't just a podcast. I want this to be a community. I want this to be a safe space to tell the truth, to tell your story, to be heard, to begin healing. Most importantly, the stories that you have are untold stories that maybe nobody else knows about. But this is a way for you to tell it to us so we can support you and you can support me. A little more about me. I'm not doing this because I have all the answers. I don't at all. I'm still learning. I want to learn with you. I don't have it all figured out, but I completely have found tools that have worked for me, that have been game changers. And I would like to share those, and they might not work for you, but they might work for somebody else, or they might work for somebody you know, or you might have some tools. This is why I'm doing this. It's so important. Being that for years I was suffering in silence, surviving in silence, we don't have to do that anymore. We can break the silence. We don't need to keep quiet. We don't need to be numbed. A lot of my growing up after my horrific accident that I was in, I was bullied. Back then, though, kids would be out on their bikes and they would drive by my house and yell Scarface and horrific things. And it was just awful, to have to go through that. I'll never forget that. And these kids nowadays are probably grown adults, and I'm sure they've learned and they've grown over the years, but to know how that hurt me they'll never know that, but that's okay because I need to get past that. But there's little things like that that people suppress that they don't even realize how much it bothered them. And it just makes you go deeper into your shell. So 5 years ago, it kind of all caught up to me. I was getting out of a toxic relationship that I was in. I had many toxic relationships, and I was starting to realize that some of the people that I had allowed in my life, that I had attracted into my life, whether it was friendships, relationships, partners, even acquaintances, wasn't healthy. And I was attracting that because I feel like people that are not whole or not on this great journey to being their best selves are going to attract the same kind of people. So it took me until about 5 years ago to start realizing that. And one thing that started really happening 5 years ago after I got out of this toxic relationship, I started getting panic attacks that you would have thought I'd been going through them my whole life. Nope, started getting these panic attacks. My anxiety started getting stronger. Like I would just get anxiety for no reason. I would get emotional flashbacks. I was starting to realize how broken I actually was and how I felt. And you know what? I wasn't broken. I was traumatized. That was the biggest part of it. I was traumatized and I did not know who I was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. The energy I was putting out there wasn't healthy. So I started meditating and doing yoga and things like that, which really got me in touch with my body and how trauma affects your body and your nervous system. That was like the biggest awakening for me. There's a great quote that I've always said to myself because I always felt like from the outside in, nobody knew how I was suffering. But the quote is, just because I carry it well doesn't mean it's not heavy. And that's how I lived through my life. I had this air about me, put on this fake, happy persona, and I had like 5 pounds, like an elephant on my back, like 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds on my back. And that's just not healthy. And that's when I started realizing this 5 years ago. And I'm sure many of you who have gone through trauma can understand some of this that I'm talking about. You know, you're settling through life, you're settling with the people that are in your life, you push through the pain, you just ignore it. Does any of that sound familiar? Because that was something that I was like, oh, so that's what I've been doing. Okay. So now that I have this knowledge, what do I do with it? And you want to talk about realizing things in your body. Like the weight I was carrying was actually exhausting. Like it was absolutely exhausting. It was so hard for me to realize that. But once I did, just realizing that, the weight lifts a little. It starts to lift a little bit. It's kind of like you start seeing light through the cracks. I promise you though, and it started almost immediately. Once that weight starts lifting, your healing starts to begin. It's such a beautiful experience, that healing beginning, and it just makes you want to keep doing more and more and more. And now I'm at a place where I'm like, oh my gosh, what's the next thing I can do? What can I do next? And this space that I'm creating is a big part of this. So I'm so hoping that you being here can help me as well, because my real healing has begun. I still have a long way to go, but I'm almost there. So 5 years ago when I started meditating, I realized I was living life so on edge, like constantly on edge. You hear that fight or flight. I was so on edge with everything. I never ever felt settled anywhere that I was. And this was another big part of my healing journey. Like when I started looking back at my life and how I lived it back then, and I was constantly on the move. One thing about trauma survivors is a lot of trauma survivors want to move to big cities. They want a lot of noise around them. Well, that's exactly what I did. I could have been the textbook for this. I moved a lot. I lived in Las Vegas. I moved to LA, and Guess what I did for a living back then? I worked in the music industry. Can't get more noise than that in your life. I worked in the music industry for years, back and forth from Vegas to LA. It's a busy, big, 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 loud industry, and it couldn't have silenced my trauma more. It was the perfect recipe for somebody going through trauma. And when I had worked in that industry, I had just this busy, 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 busy life. And it was so easy being able to ignore any triggers. So if there was any trigger or any thought, I ignored it because there was a sound check going on, or I had to get somebody in their green room, or I had to, get ready to start a show, or I had to, talk to a tour manager or whatever it was. Like there was never, I didn't have time to be quiet. So it was great. At the time, it was great. It was a lot of fun too, don't get me wrong. But it was also a huge distraction. It was a way for me to hide behind everything. So doing this, as I went through this for the years, I was shrinking, not like physically shrinking, but inside I was just shrinking. I was hiding, ignoring it all. Like, that saying, if you just ignore it, it'll go away. No, it doesn't. You need to treat things head on. It doesn't go away. It will resurface. And boy, did it. And I just feel like I'm kind of upset it took me all these years for it to happen, but everything happens for a reason, and it did happen at this point for me, because I don't think if it had happened earlier, I wouldn't have wanted to build this community. And after, one thing that I did do is, after, when I was working in the music industry, I decided I just needed a grown-up job. It was just too much. And I knew that working there, I wasn't going to be able to settle down. I wasn't going to be able to have like a normal life and things like that. So I actually left the industry altogether and started working in healthcare, which was a much better place for me, I guess, to say, as far as my career goes, because I'm not doing this podcast for anything else but to help people. I have a career. So I'm doing this just because I want to create this community and help people. So this was really important to me. So, like I mentioned, Trauma Rock Stars, hence the name. Now you understand where I came up with the name. This is a place where, you know, to have conversations that I wish I had been able to have earlier, or I had been open to have them, or I had had access to people who have been through this and really understand, who I'm able to talk to. Some things that I want to talk about in the episodes, we are, of course, going to talk about trauma. I mean, we are trauma rock stars, but what comes after the trauma? That's the biggest thing. That's what I want to talk about. Waking up every day. You guys need to give yourself credit for just waking up every single day. You've got another day that you've gotten through it. The messy in between of healing, there's a lot in between. Sometimes you feel like you take this amazing step forward, and then the next day it's 10 steps backwards. I still am going through that. But that's part of the messy middle of it all. That we can talk about tools that actually do help. There are tools out there that you may not have tried or heard of that actually do help. I just ask that you keep an open mind, because it might not work for you, which is fine. If something worked for me, might not work for you, and vice versa. But I want to hear from you all, like, what has worked for you, because you might help one person. Oh my gosh, and that would be just amazing. And then the biggest thing is just the connection and the courage for us to come together and just reminding each other how brave we all are to come out and talk about this and be there for each other. That's so important to me. But again, we have to do it together, because it's suffering in silence. It's not necessary. So there's going to be a lot. We're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of joy, a lot of laughter. There's probably going to be a lot of crying. That's okay. That's part of releasing everything. But that's part of like exploring trauma, healing our mental health, our physical health, setbacks that we might have. Like, that's where I was saying, one step forward, 10 steps back. There's always some setbacks, but it creates a space to learn something in those setbacks, I think. And then everything in between that. Each week, I'm going to be here for you, sometimes solo, sometimes I'm going to have guests and co hosts with me. We're going to share our healing stories together. We're going to explore different healing tools. Most importantly, I want to do it because I want to remind you that your story is important and it matters. So if this seems like something you would like to be on and talk about with me in the safe space, please let me know. So part of the episodes that I'm going to have are going to be conversations with therapists, survivors like you and me, as I mentioned, some healers. I'm going to have some trauma specialists on. When I shifted my career into healthcare, I actually worked in trauma burn for a few years, and it was amazing. And I met some incredible people. And over the years, I've just met some incredible people from that area that I worked in. So I'm going to have some trauma specialists on, even writers and artists that can help us create this like beautiful, peaceful life. I think it's really important to embrace them and have them on and trauma they've been through as well. I'm going to have some friends and family on. It's important that our friends and family that have gone through this with you are heard and we can hear their perspective of it from a different lens, because, you know, caregivers need caring too. That's so important. And you never know, I might have a rock star or two on. I've got some ideas up my sleeve and I'm talking to some people. So, you know, that could be really exciting. Some of the topics we're going to have is what trauma actually is and how it shows up in our body and our nervous system. It wasn't until, 5 years ago that I started realizing, and now I can totally understand how trauma shows up in my body and my nervous system. Like I can recognize it now in a way that I never had been able to. And now that I know, I'm like not there yet. I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm getting really close. Like I'm so in tune with my body and my nervous system now with everything. And when it happens, it's almost like a switch and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, this is starting to affect me. It gives me an opportunity to stop and pause and think about it and really identify like where it's coming from and why. So we're going to talk a lot about that because that's a huge part of the journey. I'm going to give you one more quote, but it's a really good one and it's something that I think about all the time. We've all heard people say time heals all wounds. But actually, that's not true. Time does not heal all wounds. What you do with that time heals wounds. So when I think about my journey going back all those years ago and doing nothing, of course I wasn't healing because I was doing nothing with that time except drowning out everything that was going on inside me with all this huge noise, this life, this crazy music industry life. Like there was nothing I was doing to heal that. So just remember that time doesn't heal all wounds. What you do with that time is what heals the wounds. If you remember anything from this, I just want to say too that I'm just going to be honest up front. This is, as I mentioned, a very gentle space, but there's going to be some very heavy topics that we're going to talk about. It's okay. They might be hard for you to hear. A lot of them aren't even going to be appropriate for children to hear. But that's why I want you to listen to this at your own pace when you want, if you need to take breaks. Most of these aren't going to be live, so I want you to be able to do that. I also want you to give yourself time and grace to be able to, not only do I always want you to put yourself first, but I want you to be able to pause for a minute and maybe even write something down that was said that resonates with you and think about that and really just give yourself a break. Like you're doing the best you can. And I want you to know that like what you do within that time, it doesn't have to be these big, huge things. It could just be like little tiny half baby steps. That's all it takes is these baby steps. And before you know it, you're like a week in or a month or a year or years and years into it. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I've learned so much about myself. I can't believe I'm in the process of going through this journey. or a lot of you might be through it, completely through it. So it's such a beautiful journey, and there's going to be setbacks and things like that, but just like I said, be kind to yourself and patient. So I'm creating this space, so we do have the soft space to land, but again, I want us to speak the unspoken, things we haven't been able to speak about with others. I want you to know that for years I felt broken. I never really understood why. And, when you numb that pain, whether it's through drugs, alcohol, I mean, whatever, acting crazy, whatever you do, whatever you numb that pain, you're not broken because you're doing that. You're a human and you're trying to get through life. So just remember that. Like, do not beat yourself up. It's okay. You will get there. I want you to know how brave you are. I want you to know we're going to heal together. I want you to know that I would love to hear your story. This is just the beginning. If any of this resonates with you, please stick with me through this journey, through the episodes. Please share this with anybody that you think it might help or might be interested in listening to this. I want to thank you so much for trusting me with your time. It's so important that you feel safe with me and we feel safe with each other. And I want you to pay a lot of attention to the energy and how you feel when you're going through this journey, because there is going to be some yucky energy that's going to come up that you're going to feel, not just from yourself, but from other people around you. Because now that I'm kind of going through the survivor part now, I feel a lot of yucky energy around me from other people. Like, it's so strong. It's crazy how much stronger it is. So I just want you to think about that lightly and write it down and just understand what it is. Like, writing has really helped me lately, and I'm not a journaler, but I've really gotten into it and it's really helped me lately. So that's something that, find something like that will help you, that you can write down, oh, I just got this feeling from this person, or within my gut, like those belly pains that you get. Write those down. Again, you guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being with me. I'm Trauma Rockstar Tracy. I'll see you on our next episode, but until then, please be kind to yourself. The content on this podcast revolves around personal life experiences and is meant to serve as a learning tool. I'm not a certified therapist or medical expert. This podcast does not offer medical or psychological or professional advice. If you're curious about your mental and physical well-being, feel free to reach out to a licensed healthcare professional for assistance.